Hey, so good morning, everybody. Hopefully you can all hear me, and apologies for the slight hiccup that we've had. We've had a few technical issues that we've had to resolve this morning. So thank you, everybody, for their patience and joining us on this new link. But welcome to our latest webinar. Today's session will be on Are Your Ducks in a Row with Consumer Duty? So firstly, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Martin Green. I'm the sales manager here at Alps, but you'll be pleased to know I'm not going to be the one that's hosting the webinar for you today. For that, I will be passing over to our friends at Create Solutions. So we use Create currently as a compliance consultancy. They do a fantastic job, and they were very supportive, very helpful for us getting our consumer duty board reports and implementation off the ground. So we didn't think there was anybody better placed to be hosting today. Today's webinar will be presented by Alison Belbin. So Alison has been with Create for a good number of years, but she's got a wealth of experience to draw upon. She's also worked for the FCA as well, so she's seen things from their side of the table, what they look for, what we can sort of take away from that, and how we can sort of implement things from a consumer duty perspective. So I will be handing over to Alison shortly. Alison will then run the webinar, go through the slides that we've got. If you have any questions throughout, just pop them in the chat, because what we'll do towards the end, once the slides have gone through and Alison's finished presenting, we will then do a sort of Q&A session, and we'll pick some questions out of the chat, and hopefully sort of provide some answers, some insight for everybody in attendance today. One thing that Create are offering as well, for everybody that's in attendance today, is they're offering a sort of a free 30-minute consumer duty sort of MOT or health check, really, for anybody that wants it, that thinks it will be beneficial. We'll send some contact details out after the webinar. So get in touch with them, let them know, and if you need sort of any assistance, any support with everything consumer duty, then they'll quite happily sort of give you a free health check for attending today. I think we've got everything covered there, but we'll give everybody a couple of minutes just to sort of switch over, because obviously we've had those technical issues this morning. So we're just waiting for a few more people to join, I think, and just make sure those messages are filtered through. And then what we'll do at the end as well is we'll give you the details for our webinar next month as well. So this is obviously going to be a monthly thing that we're doing, getting guest speakers in from various different topics. So towards the end, we'll give you the details of where we're going to next. So spread the word. The emails will be going out as well. By all means, sign up for the next one. I think that is everything for me. So Alison, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Martin. That was a lovely welcome. Very delighted to be here. So thank you first of all, thank you very much to Alps and Martin for the invitation, and thank you very much to Tom for getting the tech issues that we've had resolved. So again, apologies for that, and thank you for bearing with us and coming and sticking around and joining us here this morning. So our session this morning, we're going to be exploring the question, consumer duty, are your ducks in a row? So I apologise in advance if you are not into ducks or anything, because there are quite a few pictures of ducks here this morning. So but please bear with us with our little theme for today. So if we could have the next slide, please, Claire, and we'll talk about what we're aiming for you to learn about today on our takeaways. So here we have first picture of ducks. So what we aim for you to go away from the session today with is an understanding of 10 key things that you can use, that you can check to keep you on track with your consumer duty work, okay? And the aim is that will give you the confidence that you're on track, and you're on track with your consumer duty work, and or identify any gaps or rooms for improvement, and we can support you with that with our health check. And you'll have a better understanding of what the FCA is expecting in year 2 of their consumer duty board report, the second one that you've had to do for them. And a little reminder for to make sure that you update your training records, and also make a note in your board report that you've had this training and input this morning. Very important to be able to show the FCA or any other external third party what work you've done to sort of keep you on track and keep those ducks in a row. Okay. So that's our takeaways, what we're sending you away with today. So next, if we could have the agenda, please, I'll show you how we run through how we're going to do that with you. So we are going to start off with a quiz. The reason for that is that I find it kind of helpful when you're in training sessions to help you kind of like get the brain going, get you into the subject of the day, opportunity to be a bit competitive with yourself or like whoever you're, perhaps some of your colleagues you might be in a conference room with, for example. Then we're going to go through the 10 key things to keep you on track. And the way that we've done that is that we've grouped those into 5 separate areas, 2 points under each. Nice and simple ideas for you kind of get hold of, things that help you make a note of, stick in your brain, or go back and have a look at the recording. And then Karen, I will hand you over to Karen at the end, who will talk to you about the free 30-minute consumer duty MOT or health check that we are offering for the attendees today. And then we will open the floor for a Q&A. So that's our agenda for this morning. Okay, if we can have the next slide, please, Claire. Okay, so now, starting off, as promised, with a consumer duty quiz and a little bit overview recap of some key consumer duty points. So, with the number of attendees today, what I'd like to do ideally with this is people shout out or get on the chat. But there's a lot of you here. There's a lot of you here today, which is great. And thank you again for joining us. So, I'm just going to ask you to play along. Benchmark yourselves, so you have the honour of getting there's five questions and a few bonus questions of seeing how well you do, and maybe if you're in a room with some of your colleagues, you can get a bit competitive with them. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to read out the question, and then I will tell you what the answer is, and then you can just benchmark yourself to see how you did. Okay, so if we can have question 1, please, Claire. So question 1. What is the primary aim of the FCA Consumer Duty? Is it answer A, to increase the profits of financial firms? Answer B, to ensure consumers receive fair value, products meet their needs, and good outcomes are achieved? Answer C, to simplify compliance processes for firms? Or answer D, to reduce regulatory oversight? Okay, so I'll just give you a moment to think about that. It's a short moment, and I'm sure most of you got that. The answer is B. Okay, so question number 2. If we could have question number 2, please, Claire. Fantastic, thank you. So question number 2. Which of the following is not one of the 4 outcomes under the FCA Consumer Duty? A, products and services. B, price and value. C, consumer support. D, corporate profitability. Just give you a moment there. Okay, and the answer is D, corporate profitability. And if we could have question 3, please, Claire. Thank you very much. So question 3. Under the FCA Consumer Duty, firms must A, focus solely on financial products. B, act to deliver good outcomes for retail customers. C, ensure that consumers take full responsibility for their decisions. D, meet only the minimum standards set by the FCA. So I'll give you a moment there. And the answer is B, act to deliver good outcomes for retail customers. So question 4. Which group of individuals are considered the most susceptible to harm under the FCA Consumer Duty? A, high net worth individuals. B, B, financially stable customers. C, customers with characteristics of vulnerability, such as poor health or low financial resilience. D, customers who regularly switch products. So I'll give you a moment to think about that one. And the answer is C, customers with characteristics of vulnerability, such as poor health or low financial resilience. Question 5. When is your next Consumer Duty Board report due? A, 31st of December 2025. B, 31st of May 2026, C, 31st of July 2025, D, 30th of June 2026. So I will give you a moment to think about that. It will certainly be fresh in some people's minds, I'm sure, when you're writing it. And the answer is it's coming up. It's in 30 days. It's the 31st of July 2025. So, bonus question. I'd like you to think about what is the sign-off process. So I'll give you a moment to think about that. There isn't a slide for that, Claire. So it's a bonus question. What is the sign-off process? So now those of you who were thinking the following. So the sign-off process is that your board must review and attest by the 31st of July 2025 the board report. Okay, so this is an absolute date. This is like the backstop date. You can review, the board can review and attest, and that they're happy with it at any time before that, within the year before that. But that is the last date that needs to happen. And a bonus question is, how often are these reviews required? The answer to that one is at least annually. Okay, so a little bit of information about the upcoming board report for you. Okay, if we could have the next slide, please, Claire. So now this is a little, just a little recap before we get into our 10 key things for you to be thinking about to make sure that you're on track with your consumer duty work. So now, what you see the saying on the slide there, the quote there, and that is directly from the FCA. This is what they were aiming to achieve by bringing in the consumer duty. They're setting high expectations for the standards of care that firms give to consumers. And they've been very, very focused on that. They've been doing lots of sort of review work and producing lots of feedback for the industry to take note of. And what we have on the right-hand side of the screen is what we call like an infographic. And again, this is an FCA infographic, and we use it. We affectionately call it either the wedding cake or the Christmas tree, depending on how you think of things visually, because it has like the key consumer duty rules there. So at the top, you've got the new principle: you must deliver all financial services businesses regulated by the FCA must deliver good outcomes for retail consumers. Then you've got the cross-cutting rules. For example, you must act in good faith towards consumers, and that goes across everything. And then at the bottom, you have the 4 consumer duty outcomes, which I'm sure you've heard a lot about. And these are the outcomes that the FCA expects you to test to make sure that you are delivering on. Hence this concept of outcomes testing, which I'm sure by now a lot of you will be familiar with. Okay, so little recap, little quiz, get the brain cells going. So let's now look at our 10 key things to bear in mind in relation to your consumer duty work. So if we have that, okay, great, we've got that slide, wonderful. So this is the key focus of today, to share some thoughts on the consumer duty that will help you keep on track with your work and keep your heads firmly under the parapet and out of FCA sight. This is our aim: keep your businesses, keep yourselves safe, keep you below the FCA parapet. However, if you were to come to their attention, if you had like the pleasure, perhaps, of being selected as part of one of their thematic reviews, as they call them, we're here to help make sure you'll be able to keep those ducks in a row. So 10 key things to share with you today. I've grouped them into 5 areas. We're going to start off by looking at governance. Then we're going to look at outcomes and MI. Then we're going to look at distribution chains. Then we're going to look at consumer duty board reports. And then we're going to round off by looking at FCA guidance and regulatory changes. So if you'd like to play along with the ducks in a row theme, please feel free to add a duck to your row for each key point that you reckon that you are on track with. Okay, so we're going to start off with governance. If we could have, okay, we've got that slide up. Fantastic. So governance, what do we mean by governance? So I've deliberately used the FCA term here, so for those of you who are not so familiar with it, it's something you get some familiarity with. And this is the FCA term, and because I worked for them for 10 years, they have their own, they have their own language. It's for how you organise and control your consumer duty work. Okay, so our 2 key takeaways here are: make sure that you have your governance structures in place. Now, this applies whatever size your business is, and please do bear in mind that the FCA does not expect the same kind of complexity sort of organization and control. For smaller businesses, it does for larger businesses. It's just whatever is appropriate for your particular business. And it can be as simple as having a consumer duty committee, reviewing and discussing consumer duty at your senior leadership teams meetings. But make sure that you document that, okay? So key things here are to make sure that you have and can show that you have clear reporting lines to your senior management, and that they've got clear oversight and ultimate responsibility for your consumer duty work. Something that I have seen in a number of reviews I've done is that the compliance people are saying to me, okay, our senior management are not taking any interest in this, they're not taking responsibility for it. The FCA really would not like that. Other elements to think about here are having to make sure you've got the right policies and procedures and they're up to date. For example, vulnerable customers, and make sure you've got regular training for your staff. This is like an ongoing process. The FCA has frequently said the consumer duty is not a once and done situation. It is an ongoing process. Okay, so the reason I put the second point up there, document, is very often I see with our lovely clients that they're doing great work, and then I ask the question, how would you show somebody like a FCA or any other third party, someone you're planning to go into business with, for example, how would you show them that you've done that, or how would you demonstrate, to use the FCA word, that you've done this? And they're like, oh, we didn't write it down. So we really encourage you to find a way, if you're not already doing it, to make sure that you document this work. One idea that we've worked with our customers with a lot is using a consumer duty log, and we could help you get that set up. Now I'm going to draw on my FCA supervisor experience here, and the supervisors at the FCA, they're the ones who would liaise with you if there were an issue or if they were doing any review or audit work with you. As far as the FCA are concerned, if it isn't documented, it never happened. So this is why I unapologetically bang on about this an awful lot to our clients. Okay, so if we could have the next slide, please, and we'll look at outcomes and MI. So on to our second area, and in relation to MI, we're recommending that you organise your MI into dashboards or heat maps and set tolerances within that. And the reason for that is FCA has made it clear that they're no fans of disorganised MI, and we do see this regularly in our work. MI has been coming in from different places, and it's not sort of coherent. And they also expect your new MI or MI to be looked at in a different way, not just rehashed. They've sort of made that point several times in their feedback. And again, we can help you with that. So in relation to outcomes, to the second point on the slide there, in relation to your outcomes testing, I'm going to challenge you to ask yourself the question, do your different groups of customers have equal outcomes? And could you show that to any external third party, FCA or anybody else? And the reason I put this in again is this is a key FCA expectation, and they are expecting firms to up their game on this one, particularly in relation to vulnerable customers. So ask yourself that. I'll challenge you to ask yourself that question. So on to our third point, please, which is distribution chains. Yep, I think we're there. Okay, fantastic. So we've included this as this is an area that FCA sees as sort of weak when their reviews, and we see this in our reviews. This is possibly due to prioritising other things. Consumer duty is a big deal. Resources may not be ideal, and also lack of understanding about obligations. Essentially, the FCA requires all firms that it regulates to self-police and ensure that all their distribution chain partners are meeting their consumer duty obligations. So you might have had requests from insurers, for example, to show that you're doing what you should be doing. So question, how do you carry out reviews on your distribution chains? These can be done in a number of ways, depending on what your distribution chain looks like. If you've got broker portals, you could request attestations, make the provision of MI with outsourcers, contractual if you outsource your ethanol provision, for example. So, and as part of this, we recommend considering mandating MI that you receive, training, conducting reviews, and checking or providing policies. So there's a number of ways that this can be done depending on the specifics of your distribution chain, which of course in our sector can be quite complex. And again, we can help you with that. Now, the other thing that the FCA are unhappy about in this particular area is about information sharing. So you may have had issues with this, getting information on claims, histories on claims from insurers, for example, is one I've heard of a lot. So ask yourself the question, am I getting the information that I need? And if you're not, we'd recommend that you make sure that you clearly document that you try to get hold of this information, but it's not being made available to you, and making sure that you are providing the information requested of you, so you are fulfilling that part of your obligation within your distribution chain. Okay, so if we could have the next slide, please, which is about Consumer Duty board reports. So we've already touched on this a little with the dates. So what FCA have said is that for this year's board report, which is year 2, this is the second one that you've done, they've stated they're expecting, and I'm quoting here, progress and maturity. Now, what does that look like? Okay, it looks like that you should be able to show a cycle of continuous improvement. What I mean by that is that you do something, you review it, you identify any issues, you learn from it, and you take action. So it's that cycle: do, review, learn, take action. Okay, so again, I'm going to ask you to think about what documentation do you have to track your consumer duty process. Could you show that you are actually doing this? So have your policies and procedure been updated? Have your action logs been updated? Have you been keeping meeting records? Are all of those up to date, and are they relevant? Would you be able to show this cycle of continuous improvement that the FCA are expecting? And is it reflected clearly in your Consumer Duty board report? So Consumer Duty board report is a real opportunity to sort of show everything that you're doing, and it can collate all of that. And again, that can be a potentially useful tool to show for example, any potential distribution partner that you do have your ducks in a row. Okay, so second thing I'm going to ask you to think about in this particular area is ask yourself the question, are your actions complete from last year? If not, document why and have a plan with realistic deadlines. Now, if they aren't complete, it's not like all the FCA are going to come knocking on knocking on your door. So as they do call a number of these reports, they don't have the capacity to check all of them. But the critical thing is that you identify it as an issue and you have a plan to deal with it. You don't just ignore it. Okay, so going back to this point about this cycle, the expectation about this cycle of continuous improvement. Okay, so my final question I'm going to ask, which isn't on the screen there, is does your Consumer Duty board report take into account FCA outputs? And what I mean by FCA outputs is the papers that they issue, discussion papers, feedback papers, policy statements, which covers the review work that they've done, and they often put good and poor examples of good and poor practice in there, and that sort of sets out what their expectations are. Does your Consumer Duty board report take into account these outputs? And also, are you horizon scanning? Now, what I mean by horizon scanning is, are you looking to the future and thinking, okay, what's coming down the line? How might that affect me? What do I need to be, what do I need to do to get ready to deal with this? So we'll have a look at that in the next slide. Okay, so that's our final topic. If we could have that up. Okay, so the first element of that is dealing with FCA guidance, and there is a lot of that. There's been a lot issued in the last year on the subject of the consumer duty. If we could have the next slide, please, Claire, that should have that. Okay, fantastic. So these are some examples. These are essentially the key FCA guidance documents that have been issued. So we would encourage you to, if you haven't already, to make yourselves familiar with these. There's one on price and value, outcomes testing, complaints handling, consumer duty board reports, the customer support outcome, and vulnerable customers. And should you choose to come and work with us, we have produced gap analyses for the 3 key of these, and that sort of distills all the key points from that, which sort of helps you access that, because I do acknowledge as an ex-FCA person, these can be long and can take time to wade through. And we also issue handy guidance bulletins for our clients as well. Okay, so, and if we could have the next slide, please, Claire. So the other thing that we're encouraging you to do is to make sure that you are what we call horizon scanning. And there's a couple of areas that are coming up that might be of interest to you. So if you offer premium finance, there is a market study being conducted into premium finance. We're expecting an interim report and proposed next steps. It was due in the first half of 2025, so was the imminent. And there's also results of a review of insurers' claim handling arrangements. Now, I appreciate that you're not that you are not insurers, but a lot of the guidance that comes out of these FCA reviews often applies right across the sector. So just because it doesn't have your sort of like a sort of business model in the title, it doesn't mean to say it wouldn't be relevant. And it could also sort of be music to a number of people's ears, because I've spoken to a number of clients and they have sort of expressed frustration about the sort of claims handling standards of insurers at the moment. So 2 things for you to bear in mind in relation to horizon scanning. And again, that's something we support our clients with. So I'm going to challenge you now to think about how many of those particular points do you feel that you like are on track with. How many ducks would you put in your readiness row, and how many ducks are like sinking a little bit and the areas that you might need support with. If you do have some like sinking ducks, don't worry about it. You know, make sure that you have you've identified them, what the issues are, and you've got a plan to get that sorted out. And that again is something that we can help you with. So I think this would be a helpful point to hand over to Karen, and who can talk to you a little bit more about the free 30-minute consumer duty MOT that we are offering the attendees today. So Karen, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you, Alison. Thank you. And thanks for taking us through those 10 points. I think just to start with, some things I'd like to emphasise are in relation to the Consumer Duty Board report. When we're meeting with our clients, seeing how they're getting on, they are doing a lot of really good work under the Consumer Duty umbrella, but don't actually, when you get talking to them, they don't actually relate it back to the Consumer Duty. So there's a lot of good work going on, but not being documented. And that's what Alison picked up earlier. So doing what you can to improve things in that particular area, a lot of firms are doing. In your board report, I would definitely recommend that you evidence that the board has challenged some of what's been put in front of them, that you know, the MI and the results of the outcomes testing, etc., that you evidence that the board has challenged what's going on and that MI as well. So that's another point as well. In relation to outcomes testing, ourselves Create Solutions, we've been working with clients, doing consumer duty reviews for them from the very start at all different levels, some really in-depth audits. We're doing one for a client at the moment, and it's a 3-week audit across the board. So what these reviews have really been valuable to clients in that they're helping, from an external point of view, helping inform the firm how they're on track, but also helping them inform their action plan. It's another pair of eyes, the third eye, looking at how they're doing, an independent view, and also informing their board report. So the results of that review are going in the back of the board report, in the appendix as well. So that's really, really valuable. Sometimes we can be doing a lot of really good work, but when you're actually questioned about it, you don't realise how much you're actually doing. So it pulls out a lot of the positives that you're doing as a firm, but also some recommendations and steer and update on where things can be improved, or picking up some good practice as well, which we share throughout. So this 30-minute MOT is 30 minutes, and so it's brief, it's Q&A based, so you don't need to prepare anything, you don't need to present anything, but a QA with one of our expert consultants. Many of our consultants have worked for the regulator, but some of our consultants have also been in your shoes, have worked for brokers, insurers, etc., claims management companies. So we have that expertise from all sides. So if you want to take advantage of that, we've talked about it this morning. The deadline for the Consumer Duty Board report is the end of July. Many firms, some firms may be on track already and have already completed the board report. It doesn't have to be done that the end of July. Some firms have started to do that earlier. But if you wanted to slot that in, that review, I'm sure we can do that. If you wanted to contact us, Martin will pass you the details. Contact us, we'll get you booked in. And as a result, you'll have a brief report as a result. Again, stating some of the good things that you're doing, the good practices, what our opinion is, and some recommendations as well. So that's on offer for today for coming along to today's webinar. Another thing I'd like to mention as well is that when we're meeting our clients, in relation to outcomes testing and monitoring, firms are finding this, I would say, one of the biggest challenges. In that they're doing all this good work, but they have several spreadsheets, different methods of collecting the data to help them inform their outcomes testing, etc., and the demonstration as well. I just want to highlight that we've Create Solutions have come together with a firm, and it's called Actus Oversight, and this is a piece of software that helps firms evidence what they're doing in the outcomes space. And we actually showed it to the regulator recently, and they were, I would say, they were very positive about it. So we're doing demonstrations to our to clients at the moment. So if you're interested in that as well, could save a lot of time and resource as well, and a lot of headaches. So please do contact us. Another area, just I'm sure Martin can tell you about this. He's been on a lot of sessions and working with us, Alps, but in the vulnerability space, a lot of training we do in the vulnerability space, from identifying vulnerable customers, several topics for many years. We're also providing training for the CII as well. So we have expertise in that area. So if it's an area where you need help, we talk about these gap analysis and horizon scanning. There's changes coming in the complaints field as well. We have several different gap analysis and tools that our clients can tap into as well to help them keep on track. So that's enough from me. I think I'm going to pass you over to Martin now. Martin, do you want to take over and see if there's any questions?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Karen, and thank you, Alison, for the presentation there. It's been very useful.
You're welcome.
And just to sort of echo what Karen said there, you know, if anybody's thinking about getting on board any of these sessions, they are very useful. They're fun, they're interactive. You know, people think that compliance can't be fun, but creator on a mission to change that.
Fun clients, that's what we're all about.
Fun clients, yes. So yeah, before I took over as sales manager, I sat as compliance officer for Alps, so I've had some first-hand dealings with Create, and they've been very supportive, provided a lot of useful information, and hopefully today everybody's found this webinar useful as well. So we're going to move into a sort of a Q&A session now. So if anybody's got any questions related to the Consumer Duty, or off the back of the webinar today, please feel free to throw them in the chat, and we can obviously put them forward to create. But sort of to start you off, Alison, I'm gonna throw this one to you. Are you able to sort of share any sort of real world examples of how firms are demonstrating compliance in their customer journeys, sort of with the outcomes testing?
Oh, good question. Let me think. Yeah, one example that I can think of is in relation to testing customer understanding. We have a client who came up with the idea that they would test the number of inbound calls, and their sort of test was essentially with the alterations that they'd made to their documentation to take out jargon, to make them more understandable, etc. They would expect the number of inbound calls to drop, as less people would need to contact them for explanations. So that was the outcome test in that particular area. Is that an example that works for you, Martin?
Yeah, I think that works. Yeah, because I think the outcomes testing is sort of an area, like you say, that there's still a bit of work needed for a lot of companies. There are some companies that are doing it very well, like you said. There are others where there's a little bit more work needed. I mean, sort of looking, if we bring it across to vulnerable customers, because I know that's a hot topic in an area of focus with the FCA. For our brokers, what practical steps can they take to sort of help and identify and support vulnerable customers, especially sort of during a claim or a renewals process? Is there anything that they should be looking out for there?
I think one thing key, and I'm going to invite my other Create colleagues to contribute in this one as well, but one thing that bounced into my head immediately there is about identifying vulnerable customers. And the conversations I've had with a number of clients is that there is often a bit of a disconnect between training that's done and then like the number of vulnerable customers that are being identified. And one of the things that with sort of conclusions that they've reached about that is that there are sometimes like people are uncomfortable asking for those asking those kind of questions or having those conversations. So one of the key things I would say is to work out different ways that you could invite that disclosure in a kind of a gentle kind of way, perhaps by putting it on your documentation, perhaps by putting something very gentle like, is there anything you'd like to share with us in the ways that we can, different ways that we can support, would support you in a message on the website. And if you've got any of the recorded messages when people phone in to people start making a claim, and those kind of like inviting those disclosures in a gentle kind of way can help with identifying more potentially vulnerable customers. And I'm going to invite my Create colleagues to they have any other contributions on this, because I know this is an area that we do a lot of work with on our clients. So
yeah, Alison, I definitely echo what you've said there. I think this is one of the key things, and I think our industry is improving in this area. I think the identification, if there's one thing I would pull out in relation to vulnerability, is I cannot emphasize the importance of the training on vulnerability for frontline staff, especially. In that it's fine doing online training sessions, all online. But on the softer skills, the empathy, the confidence building, those are really, really key. And the FCA again are drumming on about this. So the more that you can improve the skills of staff, other than the recording of vulnerability, recording the support. So it's the key thing is the recording of the support that you have given to that particular customer is vital. It is vital. Building up your MI. The FCA don't like to see on the returns, well, we don't have any vulnerable customers. We don't have any vulnerable customers. When you think about the population, It's the support, recording the support is key, definitely. And the continuous work that you can do on your scripts, on your your conversations, on your monitoring in relation to improving things in this area. Vulnerability has been here for a long time now, and it's vital. It's vital that we just keep our eye on the ball, and it's a big part of your consumer duty board report. I think also evidencing one of the consumer duty outcomes is checking customer understanding. So I know we've not focused on that particular outcome, but the support outcome and the customer understanding outcome, these are ones where we can really drill in and get some evidence, make some real improvements. So under the understanding outcome, how are your scripts? How are your scripts? Are the staff under any pressure to make those sales? Are they under any? Do they have incentives, etc., to that don't encourage good practice? I'm sure there won't be here. But drilling in on those outcomes, the support outcome and the understanding outcome. What tangible things have we done as an organisation this year to help in these areas? It's what can we evidence? What can we do? And last year, the board report was the first time people had done these reports. So this year's report may look a little bit different. Like Alison mentioned, this year's is all about the maturity. How have you embedded the consumer duty?
Can I jump in?
You can, yes, Mike, you there?
Feeling like a spare penny.
Right, an invaluable one.
This is not rocket science, and we're not social workers. The problem only arises because we have a system that we try and push all our customers through, and it's like putting water through a bottle and you get a bottleneck. There are some people that can't cope with the system, and they're all customers, and so you've got to find a different way of delivering your service to them. Really, that's it in a nutshell. The number of companies I see now that are starting up that boldly say on their Facebook website, we do not have a customer service telephone line. It's unbelievable. That's the way the world's going. One human cannot speak to another on the telephone because they want it to be automated with chat bots. You think of the customer, and they'll be of all ages. There'll be young that don't understand what an excess is. Anybody that's had an accident doesn't really know if it's the first one what's going to happen. It's basically a question of treating people as human beings, and you wouldn't have the problem if they were face to face. If they're actually in front of you, stood at the counter, you'd probably say, "Are you all right, love? Sit down, I'll make you a cup of tea." But in the call centre, people are just pushed through a system, and that's why we have 1 million complaints against financial services. I mean, it's a staggering number. And as Karen said, it's the outcome that counts. We don't care whether people have got arthritis or grief or anything else. It's how do you treat them properly? And the recording should say how you treated them, that you went an extra mile, because that's what the FCA want to see. And they actually said that the measure of success of consumer duty will be a fall in the number of complaints. And they also said that if that did not happen, they might bring in statutory regulation. So what we've got is a system that works quite well in, say, commercial business, where you've got a personal relationship and you actually see people. And it works less well in personal lines. It works less well over the telephone. And of course, online, it's quite difficult to see. But for anybody who's an insurance broker, try your own system. Buy your own policy. Put a claim in. Try and renew a policy. See what happens to the average person, and then think about, is there any way you could improve it? And I would say the ultimate test of is if your business becomes more efficient, because that's really an efficient business wouldn't have any problems.
Perfect. Thank you. I think I've got one more for you just before we go. And this is sort of looking up the ladder, obviously, because it is the board report, and the people that are more than likely compiling the report aren't necessarily the people that sit at board level. So what would you suggest would be sort of best practices to engage the senior leadership in the board in meeting the duties governance requirements? Because I'm sure there are a few companies out there where there can be a bit of friction from above. Not every company has the luxury of having an open communication between managers and board level employees. So if people are struggling in that area, what would you say would be the best practices there?
To start with, tact. Compliance should always say, yes, here's a problem, this is how we're going to solve it. The senior managers regime was intended to make board people aware of the risks that they ran personally. So make sure you're any training on SMCR actually happens, because in the event something goes wrong, the FCA will only want to speak to a director responsible, who will not be interested in talking to the compliance department.
Exactly.
So you're there to protect them and to protect the business, and to try and make things easy. And generally speaking, there's no problem, but there can be occasion where you've got senior people who've not had appropriate training and are stuck in the ways. And this is a change, and whilst insurance is sort of by definition very traditional and stuck in its ways, if you don't move with the times, you'll get completely demolished. And the thing that everybody's been saying, and we've been on so many meetings with the FCA, they've only got one regulation now at the moment. It's consumer duty. They're not interested in, you didn't say authorised and regulated. They're not interested in whether you sent a piece of paper out. It all comes back to, did the customer understand? Did you meet the outcomes? It's consumer duty, consumer duty, consumer duty. And that it will be reflected in any conversations they have with you. It'll all be about consumer duty. So if you've got people at senior level who don't understand the consumer duty, put a training course on for them.
Yeah, and it's all. I think it all boils down to culture as well. Culture of the firm and values. But whatever the board report, it shouldn't be seen as it's a rubber stamping exercise by the board. The FCA will be, if they do call for any consumer duty board reports, then they'll be looking at that. Does it look like this has just been stamped? Is it just a few changes to last year's report? So the scrutiny by the board, and also throughout the year. So it's not just a once a year; it's an ongoing. It's not once and done. This really, consumer duty is nothing new. Nothing new. This is what we should be doing anyway in our businesses and industry. And a lot of the clients we've been working have really said it's one of the best things that have been brought in under regulation. Out of everything that's come down the regulatory track, this is one of the best things, because it's made them look at their businesses and improve things, whereas they wouldn't have actually done that, stood back and looked at things in the way that they are doing now. So if the board as well, the board can see that it is a business improvement tool. This is for them to look at their businesses and improve their businesses. So better outcomes for customers equals better business, better business, better business, better profits, better reputation. It all leads back to the consumer duty, stepping back from the doing, and here's the evidence of what we're doing. We all know we could do a good job, but this is a really and it's here to stay. It's here to stay. Like Mike says, this is the umbrella. I would say this is up there. This is the umbrella piece of regulation that more or less everything hangs off in what we do. So yeah, it's so yeah, I think that's my and also in relation to your governance and all your executive meetings, your board meetings, your management meetings, your team meetings, make sure everything from those relates back to consumer duty. Obviously it will do, but how in those meetings can you evidence that you're fighting for the customer, that you're fighting to and evidencing that we're doing this because it will lead to better outcomes for customers. So it's getting the mindset customer outcomes, and that's not just at the senior management level. This is at the where staff are dealing directly with customers at all levels within the business. So it's going to take some time, but we're definitely seeing huge improvements. But as I say, it's not once and done. This is a forever ever piece of work. So that's me.
Brilliant. Thank you, Karen, and thank you, Alison and Mike as well. Also Claire in the background, who's not been on the webinar, but thank you to everyone at Create for your time today. It's been very useful, and I hope everyone in attendance has found it useful too. There will be an email going out very shortly, probably the next half an hour or so, which will have access to the slides and also the recording from today's webinar. There'll be a button in there as well, so if you do want to claim your half an hour MOT for consumer duty from Create, that'll take you to a form, fill that in, and we'll get the details across to Create for you, so you can get that booked in. And then sort of looking ahead to next month, our webinar next month is going to be on gap insurance. So our providers for gap insurance have very kindly agreed to do a session on that as well. So it's back to the market, it's FCA compliant. They're going to be answering all your questions and going through all the products as to how it now provides better value for the customers and continues to provide value for the customers. So the date and the time for that are to be confirmed, but the details for that will be going out shortly. So keep your eye on our socials. It'll come out on an email anyway. And for those of you that access our Communicate portal, the details will be on there as well. But thank you again for everybody's time and patience today as well, with the few hiccups that we had at the beginning. If you've got any questions off the back of it, just let us know. But I think that's everybody done. So thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your day. And
thank you, everyone.
We'll see you on the next one.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye, everyone.